I guess we should maybe talk about the start of the season while we're back in the studio here. It's a good opportunity to, summarise the first 3 games, because 4 points from 9. A lot of I'm seeing a lot of debate online. Have Spurs improved? Are they progressing under Ange? Are they not progressing under Ange? In terms of the summer, has Ange been backed? Has he not been backed? Is there a growing sentiment, do you feel, as well, about Ange at the moment at Tottenham? Is there a growing sentiment of discontent with Ange at Tottenham, or is that still very much a minority of fans in terms of the fan base? So, from what I see at the moment, first 3 games of the season, obviously it's frustrating that we haven't got the wins that we should have gotten, especially out from Leicester game, and there's at least a point out of that Newcastle game, probably even 3. But what I am definitely seeing is much more really good control from games, ability to pen teams in. I really believe the chances we're conceding are not as much as they were at the back end of last season as well. So I do think we're controlling games more, we're conceding less chances as well. We haven't seen Solanke yet properly integrated into the team because he's only played 1 game. So I think this team's got a lot more to go as well. So I think there are definitely good signs for Tottenham despite the results in the first 3 games. But, is there another argument to say, can we get away from those results at the moment? Because when you look at the results since November, I believe I read it was like 29 games played, like 13 losses. And at what point does that become unacceptable?
Yeah, no, there's definitely a good case for that. And you're looking at the level of team that we're beating as well. Villa aside, in the last 6 months, who have we actually beaten? It's all been teams right at the bottom of the league. That's the reality. So if you're looking at it from that sense, yeah, it's poor. But the way I look at it is that Spurs are still bang in the middle of a rebuild, as much as no one wants to hear that right now. This is Ange's 2nd season. When he took over at the club at the beginning of last season, the club was in a terrible mess, absolutely terrible mess, on the back of Conte, on the back of Mourinho, Nuno, not knowing the direction the club want to go in. We bring in a manager that plays the football that we all want to see. The squad is pretty much unrecognisable right now to what the squad that Ange Postecoglou picked up when he first joined here. So you've got to realise that things don't happen overnight. I think you're seeing massive improvements in the way that we're playing our football. Yes, we're showing massive defensive frailties in the way that we're conceding our goals. But I do see in the second half of last season, in the last 6 months or whatever it was, we weren't playing good football. We weren't winning games. And we were finding it hard to break down teams and score goals. I'm looking at these first 3 games and I'm seeing a massive improvement in the way we're playing our game. I'm seeing massive improvement in the way that we're being able to control games. I'm seeing massive improvements in our pressing as well. I think all these signs are going on the upward trajectory. What's not going in the upward trajectory is our defensive play and how it's so easy for teams to, get big chances against us, and all our hard-working games are going out the window at the moment in terms of, we're laying the foundations, but we can't finish off the job. That's what I'm seeing right now. And I do see progression with this in this team. I do believe Ange Postecoglou is the manager to take us forward. And I do think that we're going to iron out these situations. I just think it's going to take a lot longer than maybe people envisaged. And you look at other managers from around, maybe a Jurgen Klopp, maybe a Mikel Arteta, maybe a Pep Guardiola to a certain extent. It takes managers time to get the exact team that they want, playing the exact way that they want. And Ange Postecoglou has flipped this club in a complete 180. We've gone from one of the least pressing, most defensive teams in the league to going the complete other way around, where we're having the most touches in the opposition penalty area. So as much as, I want to see us win every game from now and go compete for the title and go win trophies straight away. Of course I want to see that, but I just feel like Spurs fans need to be a bit more realistic to where we're at right now. And we're not, the rebuild is not complete yet, and I don't think it will be complete until next summer. So maybe when he's talking about going on and fighting for titles and stuff, maybe that can come under Ange Postecoglou. I feel it can come under Ange, but I don't think it's going to come this season. So I'm seeing progressing in the way that we're playing, and I think it will keep progressing throughout the season. And I feel like we will sort out the defensive structure, and I feel we will sort out with us this situation where we're not finishing our chances at the moment. And once Solanke comes in and starts playing consistently, I think you'll see that a lot quicker. But again, we need to realise where we're at as a football club right now.
After the Newcastle game, the iNews wrote an article titled "Tottenham are showing no signs of improvement under Ange Postecoglou," saying familiar failings are costing Spurs and fans are starting to wonder whether Ange ball is the answer or is it the problem. When he says Spurs fans are starting to wonder this, obviously you can never really garner too much in terms of what like the match-going fans and this fan base as a whole really believe as, on a certain matter, because on social media you might get a certain point of view, and then you go to the stadium and it might be completely different. But in terms of the support Ange Postecoglou has from the fan base when it comes to everyone really believing he is the guy to bring glory back to Spurs, where do you think the fan base kind of stands on that? Do you believe the majority is still with Ange? Not obviously that no one's wanted. I don't think the majority want Ange out. I think that's clear for everyone to see. It's not toxic or anything. But
I don't think anyone wants Ange out.
No, I think there are some people who do, but I think it's a real small minority, like tiny a bit. But in terms of that real enthusiasm that there was, at the beginning of last season when he first joined, we had that pre-season, their first 10 games, like that has. Do you reckon that's dissipated a bit?
Yeah, of course it has. It's a results-driven business. That's the reality of the situation that we're in. But I don't think fans are getting disgruntled with Ange. I still think you can see a clear plan. First 3 games of this season, we might have not got the results that we wanted, but we're definitely seeing the performances that we want to see in terms of controlling games, pressing from the front, winning the ball high out the pitch. There are issues there. You can't get away from it. There are issues there. But there are always going to be issues when you change so many players, when you change the philosophy from a flip 180. There are so many contributing factors right now. And I think we were all kind of blinded by the first 10 games of last season. Everyone goes back to the first 10 games last season where we were unbeaten, where we were winning games consistently. But I felt like that was maybe just a bit of a honeymoon period for Spurs. Then the injuries come in and the suspensions come in, and we never really recovered from it. Now it's a bit of a fresh start going into this new season. And we've had a few poor results, but the performances have been there. And I think as long as the performances are there, that's something to cling on to with Ange Postecoglou. And I feel like we will be progressing this season. And like I said, I fully believe in him. I'm a massive believer. And I think he'll get us there.
Yeah, I am too, and I'm still really excited about the season ahead. I know the results have been a bit frustrating first 3 games, but it could have just as easily been 3 wins as it was 4 points. And I don't think all of it was down to Ange, albeit he does definitely have to take responsibility for how we defend sometimes. And the second goal against both goals against Newcastle and the goal against Leicester are really sloppy defending, and it's really disappointing to see us concede those types of goals, especially when all those goals came in such moments when we're on top of the opposition. We got their foot on the neck, and we just don't kill them off. And it's really frustrating to watch. And it almost causes anxiety in a way when you're watching that and we keep missing these chances, and you just start to get that feeling like this can turn on at any moment because we keep missing and we haven't put this game to bed. And then the worst comes, and we do tend to concede these goals. But for example, I watch Man City play, and look, don't get me wrong, they're a much better defensive side than we are. But you see that goal that they conceded against Ipswich, very sloppy goal, quite simple goal that Ipswich scored. They put them 1-0 up, but they don't let it affect them. They went and win the game 4-1. They put their chances away. In fact, they were 3-1 up within 15 minutes, I think, of conceding that goal, weren't they? So I would love if Tottenham reacted to the goal we conceded against Leicester in a similar fashion. That's what we got to do. But my point being is, I think even the top teams, I think we focus a lot, and even I do, on us conceding these sloppy goals and silly goals, because it's very frustrating that we keep doing it in our best moments. But when you take the overall picture of the games and you take the overall picture of how we play, I think, yes, we will concede these sloppy goals, but if we keep restricting the opposition to the level, to the amount of chances we are restricting to, which is, by and large very few, even though they are good quality chances, I think we will win a lot of football games playing this way. And I think if we can just rely on ourselves putting the chances away and rely on our keep creating the level of chances we are, get Solanke back in the team, I really do believe that we all got a recipe for what could be a really successful season. I'm looking at all the metrics from the first 3 games, and we perform very well and consistently well in all the metrics. And I know something you could say something similar last season, especially early on, but I think it's no coincidence that we're performing well in all these metrics. Touches in the box, most possession of any team in Europe's top 5 leagues. Chances created, I think we're second in the league. Shots on target, all these different kind of metrics, we're performing very, very highly, which is a consequence of how Ange set up his team. The metric for defensively is we haven't conceded. I think we're one of the lowest for shots conceded, but when it comes to XG, we're kind of mid-table, which suggests, the level of chance we're conceding is very high, despite the fact that we're conceding not as many chances as a lot of the other teams. So obviously that is something we have to work on, we have to fix. But as long as we're limiting the opposition to that, and we're still creating the same level of chances we are, I think that is going to, over the long term, that will stand us in good stead. As much as people look at it and think, this is suicide, this is so risky, why we're leaving our defence all exposed, why we're doing this, why we're doing that. I think once results start coming, which I really do believe they will, people start to change their tune on that. Yeah. And you look at ever since Pep's started winning leagues and then he's come into the league, this very high risk, high reward kind of football has what's been successful. Now I know Arsenal last year have been quite pragmatic, and Real Madrid have gotten some joy under Ancelotti, quite a bit of joy under Ancelotti over the past few years. But I still believe the general trend in modern football, in the last, especially in the Premier League over the last 10 years or so, has been highly offensive, high risk, high reward football. That has been what's generally been and also giving it time. That, whilst also building a project and giving that football kind of time, has been successful for clubs in looking to compete in the higher echelons. So I do believe we give this football time, we allow Postecoglou even more time to breathe. You got to remember, as much as he's only a year into his project, look at managers like Klopp and Arteta. They needed that time to implement that system and really make it click. It didn't just happen in a year. I'm not saying this form can carry, the form we've had since November can carry on for another year and he'll be okay, because he won't be. But as long as we're showing signs of progression, which I do believe on the pitch we are, I think there's no need to panic. And I think as well, I also think that, the criticism for the board and the criticism for the hierarchy seeps into all this negativity surrounding our results at the moment. And whenever we get a bad result, it's another excuse, more excuses for people to bash the hierarchy and bash the boardroom, which is why it feeds into that negativity as well when we get bad results. But I'm generally still very excited. As much as I do believe maybe we could have done more in the window, I look at the squad, I look at the depth of the squad, I look at both 11s now, and I do think we got a good squad. And yes, it's not perfect. There are definitely improvements that can be had, but I definitely think this is a squad that going forward can give a lot of teams a lot of trouble. And I'm very excited to see what we can do this season under Ange. I really am.
Yeah, I agree. And the most frustrating thing about the defensive problems is, though, you look at our defence with Romero, Van de Ven, Udogie and Porro. And out of those 4 players, you don't want to swap any of those players out. They're all 4 in their own individual rights, quality players, aren't they? Mm-hmm. And I genuinely believe if you swap our 4 defenders out for Arsenal's 4 defenders in Arsenal's system, in the way they're playing right now, they'll have the similar, if not the same results, if maybe even better. Like, I think individually those players stack up very well against those Arsenal back four, and because of the system that they implement and because of how long that they've been together, it obviously looks very different in their system as our system. So I don't think that the quality is that much different between Arsenal's defenders and our defenders, and look at the difference in terms of results and chances created against both clubs. But I think the main thing here that Spurs need to do to progress this season is to find that killer instinct. I think as soon as we find that killer instinct, as soon as we find that formula, and that has to come with Don Solanke in the 9, and it will come with Don Solanke in the 9, you'll start seeing a lot more positive results come through. And you look at it, where do Spurs fans expect us to be right now? Like, what is the expectation right now from Spurs fans? Where do they think we should be?
I agree, but whenever you say we need patience, there's always the retort is we've been patient for 25 years.
Yeah, I get that, but a new manager has come in with pretty much a bunch of new players as well. Like, we all call for this painful rebuild. We all call for it. We all call for an attacking manager to come in. We have all of that now. We're nearly at the end of the process of this rebuild, in my opinion. One more summer, I think, to fill those few more gaps in the squad, and I think we'll be there. So where do Spurs fans think we should be right now? Where? Like, answer the question, because I think Spurs fans should assume that we should be in a top 4 challenge and going for a trophy, and I think that's where we're at.
That's the steps, you can't just jump. I know some teams do, but it's very rare to jump from where we were in 8th to all of a sudden, start challenging for big things. When since Ange come in, it takes more than a year. It took a lot of the best managers more than a year. So obviously, I never came into the season thinking we were going to challenge for a title. Obviously, you can all dream about something special happening, but I never thought we would challenge for a title. And I just think the aim should be, getting close to those top 3, get into that top 4, consolidate your place in the top 4, get some separation between you and maybe the chasing pack as well, and try and go big for that Europa League or go for a trophy. And if we can get top 3 in a trophy, top 4, top 3 in a trophy, then that'll be a really, really good season. That shows major progression. Also, there'll be vindication for what Ange is trying to do as well. It shows progression, but also shows we could be onto a really good thing, a winning thing, if that's the case. But a lot of Spurs fans are running out of patience, and with every drop point, they see our chances of doing something special slipping away. And I know it's only 3 games in, but a lot of fans, are running out of patience and are always saying, we should have gone bigger. We should have signed this player. We should have signed that player. Why did we sign Odegaard? Why did we sign Gray? We only signed teenagers, and we should be, progressing a lot quicker and all this kind of stuff. But, this is what Ange claims that, that's what his vision is, and that's what he's trying to do: implement a younger team, lower the average age, and get moldable players that will listen to what he wants to do and listen to his methods. You could also make a very good argument when you're comparing last year's squad to this year. Is you look at the second 11 now last year compared to this season, and I think it's much more of a second 11, a second string that could do what Ange wants compared to last season. Whereas last season, you had Emerson, Højbjerg coming in. We didn't even have Dragoshin for half the season. You had maybe Solomon in the front line. Lo Celso was injured, sometimes didn't play, and he was playing in the centre sometimes. And now you have people like Bergvall coming in. You have Decky playing in the centre. You have Archie Gray coming in at right back, or Spence as well. You've got Dragoshin playing defensive mid. You've got Richarlison's our backup striker rather than first choice striker. You've got Odegaard, who can now come in rather than who was our backup right winger last year? Can't remember now. But
Kulusevski and Brennan.
Yeah, I guess Kulusevski. You got Odegaard coming in off the right instead of Decky, who now plays central. So it's a completely different kind of second string compared to last season. And I think that doesn't get. I think people just look at it and think, oh, who will we sign? Blah blah blah. But actually, if you look at the squad now in terms of what our second string looks like compared to last season, it's completely different. It's a completely different second string.
Yeah.
But Bergvall, people like that coming in, and that was one of the biggest problems of last season. It wasn't even necessarily our first 11, as much as it wasn't perfect. When our first 11 was fit, I think in general performances were pretty good. I think the biggest problem is I know our first 11 kind of had a downturn at the end of last season, but I think our first 11 in general was actually quite good. The biggest problem was our squad. And I think the squad is much more refined to fit Ange now than it was last season.
Yeah, it's true. But there's also a case to say, like, we're signing way too many teenagers at the moment, and we're not signing enough players that can come in and make the difference right now. And you've got Bergvall, you've got Gray, you've got Odebear, all these players coming in, and great, I like the look of all of them. But when you're looking to make an impact right now, can you do that with, a bunch of teenagers, essentially? Like, Solanke is probably the only player that has come in that has, dramatically improved the first 11. And that is the reality.
It's reality, but I would argue we've got a pretty good first 11. I'm not saying it's perfect, and obviously improvements could all be had, but if you can add competition and you add players who up the competitive level, if Maddison's not playing well, maybe you can actually take him out rather than just solely relying on him. Same with people like Basuma. Now that you got Bentancur there, he was also, by the way, looking like a lot sharper than he was last season. I think the first 11, when on the face of it, is actually pretty good, and I think last season they did show when they're all on top form that first 11's good. And the big problem was getting players off the bench or as a squad who can fill in, especially when we've got injuries or when we need to make substitutions, that can do the role that Ange needs from a technical standpoint. And now I think we definitely have that to a much better extent than we did last season. I think that's going to really stand us in good stead. Yes, we all want improvements to the first team, but we do have a good first team when they're all on form. And I think Ange has got to back himself to get them all on, to get them playing as well as they were at their best last season, and that's part of his job. And if he can't do that, then he's going to have. We've got players who can come in now, who are going to be of a better standard of the players coming in last season. But also, it's on Ange to get the best out of these players, and if he can do that, it's going to stand us in good stead. And we didn't necessarily need major changes to the first 11. I think we needed major changes to the squad, and I think we actually have that. We do. I think people will take that stand and say Solanke's the only improvement to the first 11, and then other fans will take that to think, okay, so the squad hasn't changed that much. But it has. There's actually been major changes to the squad. It's just the first 11, there's only been one major change, which is fair. But to the squad-wise, it is a very different squad to the one we had last season.
Yeah, it's true. It is true. I would just have liked to have seen, players that are not just teenagers come in, apart from Solanke. I just feel like it might be a bit too many to make the real desired impact that we actually need this season. Albeit, I do think these three players that we've brought in are of a good caliber, and
they're not coming in till start.
Yeah.
So they don't need to come in and be ready. They're coming in. We're going to ease them in. They're going to play Europa League games as well. But they're also shown already in pre-season and early in the Premier League that they can definitely perform at this level to a decent standard already. Not to say that they're definitely ready to be stars and starters consistently, but they're definitely ready to make a contribution to this team. And we haven't brought them in necessarily obviously they're coming in to compete and they're going to try and win their place, but I don't think that there's pressure on them to be starting week in, week out. And yes, you can say, there's too many teenagers, but all these teenagers are going to be part of the future of this team, and that's what we're building towards, a team that can be together for a long time, which is actually quite an exciting prospect in itself. And they're not coming in. They're coming in to be part of the squad. They're not coming in to be regular stars straight away. Yes, if you've got Gray, Bergvall, and Odebear, these teenagers coming in straight into the first team and they're starting straight away, it might be too many. But I think as part of a squad, I think it could be a smart move.
But then there are question marks about players that are in the first team right now. Like you mentioned, Basuma, Maddison, Brennan Johnson. There are question marks about these players. Basuma, by the back end of last season, I was probably ready to sell him, to be honest. I don't think he's performed at the required ability on a consistent basis since joining Spurs. There's a narrative about James Maddison where he starts every season well and then gets injured, goes off the boil, and you don't see him again for the rest of the season, which we did see last season. Brennan Johnson, there's a big discussion about him. Is he good enough for this system? Is he good enough in terms of to give us what we want from that right wing spot, one-on-one dribbler? So there are question marks about plenty of players that we've got in this first 11 at the moment. And I don't know if any of these players are ever going to produce for us on a proper, consistent basis, week in, week out, over the course of a whole season.
Yeah, we'll never know. I mean, we will know after, as the season progresses, and we'll get to know. But as well, we don't know. We know that as players, these are all very, very high level players when they're at the top of their game. And
that's the question. That's the thing, Madison, when they're at the top of their game.
There's a lot of Madison was known as much as you could say there's a narrative about him only playing well half a season. He was still a very good player at Leicester. I was a big fan of his signing, and he's a top player. Basuma was quite consistent performer when we signed him from Brighton, and I know he hasn't been a consistent performer for us, but we know we have it in him to do it. And when he does play well for us, he can be one of our better players. Brennan. Yes, there are question marks about how good he is, but at the end of the day, he got 15 goal contributions last season. If he can match that or better that this season, that's all we need from him, to be honest, because that's quite a lot of goal contributions coming from the right wing. So we don't need him to be the best winger in the world. We just need him to be an effective winger, and that's what he can prove to be. So I think there's still a lot to be positive about. And yes, there are question marks. So I'm sure every team has question marks about a lot of players, but we know for sure these are all very good players, and when we get the best out of them, they can more than be part of this team. They can be some of the stars of this team.
It depends what the aim is. You're talking about Brennan. We don't need him to be the best right wing in the world. We just need him to contribute in the goal contributions, and that might be right just for this season to get into the top 4 and just to get by this season. But is that going to be enough for the future of this football club? Like, we do need top players to be playing, not just to chip in with the goal contributions. We need them to be chipping in all facets of the game. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, Brennan, for the most part, has only and I'm not saying it's no mean feat. It's a big thing to do that, to get 15 goal contributions in your first season. But we need him to be contributing a lot more than just these goal contributions. We need him to be impacting the game.
All right, but he's a young winger. I think the first step is being effective, being able to contribute from goals and assists. That's the bread and butter for all wingers, for all forward players. That's what you get judged on. So as long as if he's doing it yes, overall we want him to do more. But if he was being amazing in general play and getting 2 goals, everyone would be going crazy. You know what I mean? No one would be saying, "Oh yeah, but he's doing this." No one would say that. Saying, "Well, how many goals and assists he got?" That's what they'll be saying. So the fact is, that's the most important thing, is he's getting that. And that's him showing how he can contribute over a season, how he can be effective, is he can get goal contributions. And then, yes, we need him to do more from an overall game. And he's still a young player, he's still 22. That can develop, that can come. Or maybe he's 23 now, but that can come with time. He still need to develop in this role. But all I'm saying is if he can better his goal contribution tally of last season, that's all he needs to do to be a valuable member of this team, valuable member of the squad, and that's fantastic. Maybe Odebear can chip in with a few goal contributions as well. You still got Son there. You got Solanke and Richarlison, who can both know. We both know. We know that both of them can get goals in the Premier League. We know that for sure. So obviously, Son is Son. Obviously, Werner is a question mark, but we also know that on that left wing, in certain games he can be effective. Not all games, but there are going to be games where he can make a difference. So I think there's a lot to be excited about when it comes to the first team in the front line, and in terms of the first team squad, the first 11, which we were discussing, why it didn't need major surgery potentially, and why it's more important to get major surgery from the squad rather than the first team.
Yeah, I just feel like we needed a bit of both, to be honest. I think the Monster 6 was massive for us to take us really onto the next level. Because we've improved the squad, but I don't think that we've put ourselves in a position for this season to take us onto the next level.
Well, the next level was getting into the top 4.
Well, we were kind of like around the top 4. When I talk about next level, I talk about competing for something different. We were competing for the top 4 last year. Yeah, we missed out in the last couple of games of the season. But I'm talking about the real next level here. Top 3, top 2, top 1. That's the real next level. But you just
said, we have to expect not to be in a title race.
Yeah, because of the business that we've done and because of where we're at right now. That's where we're at.
Was the goal this season to be in a title race?
If you believe what Ange says, then yes.
Yeah, Ange has got so much self-belief. I think he's always going to believe we're in a title race until we're out of it.
I think where we're at right now, we're at right now with the players that we have, and maybe in terms of how we've progressed tactically, yeah, this is where we should expect to be as a top 4 race. But that's not taking us to the next level.
Well, if we can get top 4 in a trophy, that is, isn't it?
A trophy, yeah. If we can
And
get
we
a
can't.
trophy
Are we not in a position to win a trophy?
I mean, we're always in a position to win a trophy.
Are we?
Yeah, I mean, last season we could have given a bigger fist to the Carabao Cup. You look at the way the Carabao Cup went last year, there's no reason why if we beat Fulham we couldn't have gone really deep into that and beaten a Liverpool youth side in the final or beaten that Chelsea side last season. There's no reason why we couldn't have done that last year. Of course we were in a position to win a trophy last year. We just didn't do it.
What about Europa League?
Yeah, there's no reason why we can't go deep into that tournament and win it as well.
Right.
But
So
I feel like with the squad that we had last season, we probably could have done that too.
with the I don't know.
If the Europa League in this current format with the teams that are in it right now, why not? We could have done that.
I don't know because I don't think we have the squad to do it. I think the problem with last season is we had too many players who weren't right for Ange for what Ange wanted to do, for what Ange wanted. Now it's different. Now we have a lot more. The technical ability of the squad has risen a lot, in my opinion. Overall, there's a lot less technically limited players in the squad now. Only really Davis there is really technically limited. You can maybe even argue Dragoshin, but he's a new signing. I'm going to give him time. Who else is technically limited now? I think a lot of players in this squad. Most players in this squad have a much higher technical level. Maybe Werner is not that great technically, but last season there was a lot more players who were limited. So I think last season, if we were to go on a deep run in Europa League, I don't think we would have made it because I think we would have been using too many of these players who wouldn't have been used to it. Whereas this season, I think we're in a much better position.
We're in a much better position, but what we're going for and what we're challenging is not too different from last season.
No, last season we wanted to get in the top 4, and we weren't in Europe. And this season, we didn't make it, obviously. And this season, I guess we want to be in top 4. Yeah, but you say that last season, a lot of fans beginning of the season. Yes, we aimed for top 4, but a lot of people predicted 5th and 6th, which is what we got.
But we were very close to getting top 4.
Everyone was saying, yeah, we were, but everyone was saying before the season, if we get top 6, that should be the aim after getting 8th. So this season, I think now the minimum requirement is top 4. I think if we finish outside the top 4, we'll be a major disappointment compared to last season.
I don't know if we can ever get past being top 4 challengers until we bring in one of those massive. I don't know who it could be. But until we bring in a proper monster 6, I don't think we can get past being top 4 challengers.
Johnny Cardozo.
Yeah, I mean, I never heard of him before this deal came around, so I'm not exactly the best to talk about him, but I do believe that.
You might be right, but then also maybe Basuma becomes a lot more consistent. You never know. Maybe a flip switches with him. Maybe Bentancur could become the answer. We know what a good player he is. Maybe he can do that role. Yes, on the face of it, I think we all want a Rodri or Rice. I think every team in the world would want a Rodri and a Rice. But also you've got to remember what we have in the squad. And I think people are too ready to cast aside the likes of Basuma and Bentancur when they're such high level players. There's no I would want £100 million signing in that position. If it was up to me, I would do it. But first of all, those players are extremely hard to come by. It's probably one of the hardest positions to get in right now, which is why Liverpool didn't even sign anyone after Zubimendi was called off, because they're just that the market for it is really, really difficult to find. There's not too many players out there which are guaranteed. How many players that we could we find who are guaranteed? Well, we're saying 100%. There's no doubt about it. They're going to be better than Basuma and Bentancur. There's not many out there. You've got to remember, these are very good players, very good central midfielders who would get into a lot of teams in the Premier League. So there are very few players who you could sit here and say, that player, if we sign him, he's definitely better than Bentancur 100%. There's not too many of them out there. So to move forward in the season with them, I don't think that big of an issue, potentially. It could be, but we'll have to wait. But also could it? Also, they could also potentially do the job as well. There's also a chance. Since
joining Spurs, Yves Bissouma, what evidence can we go on to say that he is the top guy to take us forward on a consistent basis?
When he's played on top of his game.
But he's had a lot more. He's had more bad games than good games for Spurs.
You could definitely argue that, but we know he. First of all, we saw his time at Brighton how he can be a consistent player, and we've seen at spells at Spurs that he could also be a very good player for us. And if we can get him playing on top of his game consistently, then he can be a very good player for us, and he could be able to do job. And also Bentancur, we saw him have a very consistent spells at Tottenham as well before his injury, and before his injury he was one of the most consistent midfielders in the league at that time. And unfortunately, it was a terrible injury, but he's now over a year past that injury now. Probably coming on 18 months. This is around the time players with that injury start getting back to their best, and maybe that's what we're going to start to see with Bentancur. And there's already been slight evidence of it. I don't think we're fully there yet, but there's been little bits of evidence to suggest that he could be getting there. So he's already here. I thought when he played against Leicester, he played very well. Obviously, we didn't see him against Everton, concussion, and he came off the bench against Newcastle, but I think there's slight evidence that maybe he could do it. So Ange just probably looked at that, is it worth spending, putting all our focus on that, or could we go ahead with Basuma and Bentancur and see if it's worth seeing if they can do the job? Is it that completely out of the realms of possibility they could do the job? Like, is it that so unlikely that it's like this massive thing that if we don't spend 100 million, we've completely failed? Like, that they can't do it? I don't see it that way.
I don't know. I just don't have the evidence to tell me that either of them can become a title challenging number 6. I just don't. There's just no evidence to suggest that.
Yeah, we're saying there's no evidence to suggest they could be as good as Rodri, essentially.
Yeah, and that's what we need.
No one's as good as Rodri.
But then how's anyone supposed to challenge?
That's a good question.
Like, you've got Declan Rice that has come in for 100 million.
And even he's moved out the 6.
Yeah, he has moved out the 6, but I mean...
Because he's not good enough. He's not as good as Rodri.
It's not because he's not good enough. They just found him in a position where he contributes at both areas of the pitch. In the number 8, he's actually incredible. He's
very good in number 8. I'm just saying. I'm not saying he's not good enough because he's a bad player. I'm just saying he wasn't as good in the number 6 as he was in the 8.
Yeah.
So they're playing. They've got Partey there. They've got Jorginho there. I'm just saying they've bought him because they thought he was going to be their answer to Rodri, and even he couldn't live up to what Rodri's capable of in that position. Like, Rodri gets the goal contributions from the number 6 that Rice gets from the 8, not even. So, Rodri's ridiculous standard, but that's the standard of the Premier League. But who are we going to find? We're not going to find anyone who's going to be as good as Rodri.
I'm not saying find someone on Rodri's level, but there's no way you can sit here and tell me that with what Basuma has shown in the Spurs shirt, there's no one that we can find that's going to be better than that.
For Basuma at his best, it would be very hard.
Yeah, but Basuma's not at his best. He hasn't been at his best since joining Tottenham.
He's been good this season, I think.
He's had one good game.
Yeah, that's what he's played.
Yeah, so
No, he played well against Newcastle, I thought.
Okay, fine.
He had a good pre-season.
Two good games, fine. But that doesn't make up for all the bad performances that he's put in. He was terrible under Conte. He was terrible for the most part last season. And he's had a good start to this season.
I don't think he was terrible for the most part last. He wasn't. I don't agree with that.
He had a good first 10 games. And what else did he produce after that?
I thought 10 games, he was really good. Then had the sendings off, went off to the African Cup of Nations, had malaria, had a bit of a difficult time. But I actually think from about, even though Spurs were going through a fairly bad period, I actually thought from the end of March time, beginning of April to the end of the season, I thought he played pretty well.
But there's a reason why you wanted a monster 6 to come in at the back end of last season as well.
Of course I want a major improvement. I'm just saying, not getting one, is it this major thing there? There's no way that Bentancur and Basuma could ever be in a team that's competing. Is that completely beyond the realms of possibility? I just don't see it that way. I think that both of them at their best could potentially be solutions in that position. I'm obviously, as I said, if I had the choice, I'd upgrade on them. But if it's not readily available, is it that bad of a decision to go forward with them this season? I don't see it that way. I don't see it as this. I don't see it as this. There's no way that these midfielders could ever be the answer for us.
That's fine, but this has got to be last chance saloon for Basuma. This has got to be it. Well. This has got to be it, because if he doesn't perform this season, we can't keep carrying on moving forward with him. We can't, because if he doesn't perform this season, for me, that would be 3 bad seasons out of 3 since we've signed him. I know you're saying maybe in your mind he had a good season last year, but nah, for me, it's not good enough. I think we need better. We need a lot better on a consistent basis as well. I think the Bissouma form last year was just way too erratic. You just didn't know which Bissouma was going to turn up each game.
And as I said, we also got Bentancur as well. And why can't he? He used to be a 6 at Juventus. Like, he was very good. He's played 6 for Uruguay as well. I've seen him do that. So, you know, we saw how good he was at the World Cup before and stuff like that. And we saw how good he was for Spurs. So, well, I mean, is it also beyond the realms of possibility he could also do the job? I mean, yes, we're waiting for him to get back to his best post-injury, but he's a very good player who can do a lot of good things in that position, in my opinion. So, like, we've got my point is we've got 2 players there, 2 very good players there. And it's very difficult to find a midfielder who's better than those 2 players. So we'll see how they perform this season. I'm not saying they're going to take us to the top. I'm just saying these 2 players are very good players who, like, when I look at the team, I don't see it as like the biggest problem in the world going forward with these 2 players this season.
Well, we got no choice, do we? We are going forward with these players, and I still think, like, I'm positive about this season. I think we can do good things this season. I'm liking the way we're playing. I really am. We just have a lot of things that we still need to iron out massively to make this a successful season. But I am liking the build-up of the squad. I just felt like we should have done a bit more in the summer. I do think we can get top 4. We can get a trophy behind our belt. We do have a super chat here from the Joracle, and he says, "You said it, Ben. We need 6 good chances per goals versus 1 good counter-attack per 1. We need to bring it down to 3 for 1 versus 2 for 1. Big up." And yeah, I don't disagree with that too much. That's definitely what we've seen this season.
If we're missing 6 good chances, and you're being wasteful like that, then you always like it's always like that means you have to basically create 12 chances to win the game 2-1 for every goal you score. So obviously that's gonna be untenable. But I'm hoping that if we keep creating like we are, we're not going to be a 6 chance for every goal kind of team. I'm hoping anyway.
And here we've got a members chat from Ryan Isaacs, member for 28 months. Big up, you 2, about to start work. Well, have a good day at work, my friend. Have a good day at work. But
Ryan,
look, back on the original question, are Spurs progressing under Ange? I do think the answer is yes. The answer is yes, because you look at the style of play, you look at how we've implemented it this season compared to last season. You have seen progression, in my opinion. You just haven't seen progression in the results just yet. But I hate bringing it back to this, and we always do bring it back to this. But you know, the journey that Arsenal have been on since signing Mikel Arteta. And I remember in the 2nd season, in the 3rd season, a lot of Arsenal fans were being like, "This guy is clueless. He doesn't know how to set up a team. There's clear flaws there. The decisions that he's making is absolutely ludicrous." And now look at them now. So I think we need to stick with the project.
trust the process.
Trust the process, as they said.
Or stick with the project. I prefer that one. Get our own catchphrase.
Stick with the project.
Stick
people.
with the project. Yeah, I agree. And I think the most successful teams right now are teams who have stuck with their manager over a sustained period of time, and teams who play on the front foot and play very attacking football and play high risk, high reward football with a structure, with a recruitment structure geared towards that, with a structure of trust between the manager and the board and recruitment, and managers who've been given time. And that's what I've seen has been successful over the last 10 seasons or so in the Premier League. And that's the path we've got to go on. And yes, we're a year in, so people, when it doesn't start instantly, getting us right to the very top and challenging for titles, people start to get a bit frustrated and annoyed, because it does take a bit of patience. But I'm willing to go through that. And as along the way, we're going to be playing great football. We're going to be playing entertaining, attacking football. And hopefully, by the end of this whole process or project, there will be some glory and some silverware at the end of it. But it's going to take a bit of time to really get to a stage where we're competing probably the top two. And probably unlikely to happen this season. But if we keep just building the squad the way in this image, in the way that we are, and playing the way that we are at the moment, which is not conceding many chances and dominating the opposition, penning them in and creating lots of chances ourselves, then that's going to be a recipe for success, in my opinion. And I know people take screenshots and look at, this is suicide, look at this, we're never going to be successful with these kind of tactics, blah, blah, blah. look, they might be right, but I'm willing to back it and I'm willing to enjoy it on the journey. And I really do believe if we keep playing the way we are, eventually the results will be there. And I believe probably sooner rather than later, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I guarantee you the narrative will completely flip and completely change when we do Arsenal in next weekend. So all it takes is 3 points in a North London derby, and people's minds can change massively. And I actually think we've got a good chance next weekend against Arsenal.
Well, if we can bloody not concede from set pieces, then maybe we've got a chance, especially if last year's game's got anything to go by. Because I know that game gets lumped into our bad end of the season, but I thought we actually played really well in that game.
The Arsenal game.
Yeah. We yes, we were well on top, and then we conceded our own goal from Højbjerg. We were then well on top again, and then should have had a penalty, and then conceded the second goal off the back of that. And then then we conceded the third from another set piece, which obviously happened, but which obviously goes into our play, but it wasn't like we were being outplayed. And then second half we rallied, got 2 goals back, and wasn't enough. But I actually think that was one of our better performances at the back end of last season. Yeah,
I would agree, but it falls into a similar narrative of the start of this season. I know maybe not conceding the set pieces, but playing well, conceding chances when we're on top, and not winning the game, not even drawing the game. So there are similarities there to the start of this season and that game in particular. But that's what we need to rub off. We need to start putting away our chances, and we need to stop giving away such high-quality chances.
Look, the reality is you're playing such high-risk football, you have to put away your chances because it's high risk for a reason. The risk you're playing is we're going to create a lot more chances than you, and we're going to put them away, and we're going to win the game 3-1 or something. And that's the high risk to high reward, and that's the risk. Now, the risk is if you create all these chances and you miss them all, the risk is that because you're so open, you're going to concede chances. That will happen, and they might take 1 or 2. And if you don't score the chances you're creating, then you're not going to get the result. That's the high risk to high reward. But I think that I'm willing to play that risk because I think it's more exciting, and I think actually it's going to be more chance of us winning than playing like we did in previous years under Conte and Mourinho, where we tried to stifle the opposition, yet barely create a chance ourselves and rely on ourselves being clinical.
Yeah. So and that we were with Harry Kane.
Yeah, and without Harry Kane. So that's what I'm. As much as I think it is very risky the way we play, and we will get unstuck sometimes. I do bank on the fact that more often than not we won't, and especially if we can get enough quality in the front line, which I do believe there's quality there. We'll win games. We're going to win a lot of games of football, and it's going to stand us in good stead. I really do believe that.
Yeah, well, look, I think that is it from us today. I want to know your opinions in the comment section below. Are Spurs progressing under Big Ange?